Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Ian. I'm just now getting around to replying to or responding to Understanding's Agressed. From what I'm gathering, you're essentially looking at aggression, why people do it, maybe what can be done, how we can have a sort of more collegial approach. What you were making the equation that you're saying people that are being evil or aggressive, I took it, were seeking, we're doing it to gain money, and money basically translating to respect. So the equation was evil is actually seeking money, which is actually seeking respect. Um, so I think that that's true for some people, certainly. Um, I'm not sure that it's true for everyone. Or I guess you said about 80%. So yeah, you're acknowledging there may be other possibilities as well. Um, I tend to look at people's minds from a perspective that's now somewhat out of favor in psychological circles, but I thought it had some merit. Basically, what it tried to look at is how the brain evolved, and that the brain evolved through essentially three major stages of development, which are reflected in the architecture of the brain. Um, there was the lower brain functions, which are the hindbrain, um, and I tend to look at that as being the reptilian brain. Essentially, it handles things like territoriality, aggression, lust, fear. All those things are part of the hindbrain, and they are necessary. They're the foundations on which everything's built, that comes after it. But you can sort of think of, yeah, but that's not the whole answer, and each successive part of the brain is a modification of what's come before. So in other words, yes, the reptile helped us to do a lot of things, but there were problems, and those problems gave rise to the midbrain. Now the midbrain is what I kind of call the monkey brain, and that's the part that has most of the things people tend to think of as the positive emotions, uh, you know, affection, friendship, and you can argue about friendship to some extent, but basically the idea of dealing with people who are on the same level as you. See, hierarchy is lower brain. It's from right from the beginning. People had to establish a pecking order, or life had to establish a pecking order. How do you deal with people above you? How do you deal with people below you? All that kind of stuff. Um, that's that's like at the very lowest levels. And yeah, that handles some things, but what about how you're going to handle the people that really are basically on the same level as you? Especially when groups get bigger, there's more middle, there's more people at every given level. So yeah, you might need to know how to deal with who's above you and who's below you, but how do you get people who are at the same level as you to basically help you out? And you can think of the midbrain as being that response. It's, you know, building friendships, building, sort of a collegial teamwork, that kind of stuff. Um, and that is I think what you're representing is that people, that are looking for face time with people they care about are living from their midbrain. They basically, what they're fundamentally interested in, what they're fundamentally seeking, is to get connection with people that they're not hierarchically superior to or inferior to, but the people that are really with them. Now beyond that, but even that was not the whole answer, and couldn't be the whole answer. The lightest part of the brain to evolve, and you could call it, is the tumorous part of the brain, the part of it that makes us think into the future more, is the forebrain. Now the forebrain evolved to allow us to do abstract thinking, to think of things in the abstract, to be able to plan, to do all those things. And I tend to call that the diplomat, because you could say scientist or something like that, but I wanted to point out that there's an element of in social interaction which is represented by not just making friendships, working socially, like doing something which brings people to is essentially working within the social medium. So you're not abandoning society by working from your forebrain, but what you're doing is you're doing it from from abstract principles. You're doing it from maybe with a goal orientation, even in the social world, as opposed to sort of the more instinctive level of sort of dealing with society on the instinctive level. That pretty much go back to your basic drives, which is your hindbrain. So if you're outraged with somebody getting into your turf, that's your lower brain responding. Basically, I think it depends on which part of the brain people are living from. Some people are living from their hindbrain. Either, their real interest is in, sex or territory or superiority. And those people, you're not talking to in this. They don't care that much about FaceTime with people they care about, except maybe in the I'm going to control you, and that's all there is to it. I sort of heard the reviews of the corporation, and corporation priority is growth, priority is a tumor. Actually, that's more like that's the priority of life, except in special circumstances. There are special circumstances. There are creatures that have specifically a restricted geographic range and cannot leave it because of geographic barriers they can't overcome. And they will evolve to be harmonious with nature, like not have more kids than the area can support, because evolution has forced them. The history of most populations, you take any population in nature, it tends to go through boom and bust cycles. They don't manage so much unless they're, for a long period of time evolutionarily, in a restricted area, in which case the boom and bust cycles will be no longer useful to them, and they will evolve to be on a more steady state. But in nature, basically creatures who have the opportunity to expand to new ranges will breed to expand to those new ranges. They don't control. Only if there's a very restrictive situation do they stop producing more kids than they need. I mean, they try to produce as many as they can. They have as many survive as they can. So I think saying that we are uniquely cancerous, we're just kind of, because of our abilities in other ways, we're able to evince that tendency that's in all of life, probably more than most other creatures, because we have more opportunity to get to new ranges because we're able to modify environments and modify our approaches in a more short-term way. Because we can think and communicate. If I figure something else very rapidly, many other people around me can also do the same thing, and that means that our expansionistic tendencies get used and get expressed more strongly than something that is basically responding more simply to the environment. So I would say, yeah, maybe we're cancerous, but maybe life is cancerous. Maybe life as a whole has that same tendency. We're just a little bit more so because we have a little bit more opportunity. And we make those opportunities, as opposed to other creatures which just use the opportunities that present themselves but don't actually make new ones. Have very simple answers to cooperation. Why don't people just... I think that's a very special period in life. 10 years old, or like basically after, a 2-year-old, you'd have a completely different answer. They're not generally going to share. A few of them will share a little bit, but basically kids when they're very young are very, very selfish. They're only concerned with themselves. They haven't developed any sort of further than that. 10-year-olds have taken what you've taught them, and they generalize. In fact, they overgeneralize. And that is what we do after 10. We teach people, well, okay, now you've learned the general rule. You've got to cooperate, because otherwise you're going to be in trouble in society. You're going to be in trouble if you don't cooperate. But how, where, and how much?